and turn it over to Faye. And I will watch the chat for any chats. And if you want to share something, feel free to unmute yourselves or wave or whatever. Thank you, Faye Fishman.
My pleasure. It's always a pleasure helping out this organization. It's an honor to work with all of you. You will never need an attorney to get disability benefits, but I am always available to take any calls for any questions you have. So I'm going to start out by just going through the process a little bit so you understand exactly what the process is and how they define disability. We're going to talk about ALS, and I'm going through more of the process than people with ALS will ever need, because there's other motor neuron diseases that are part of this that don't get the exact same treatment. So I'm going to deal with that a little bit too, so we can understand the difference and how the different programs work. But Social Security defines disability as the inability to engage in substantial gainful activity by reason of a medically determinable physical or mental impairment, which will result in death or will last for a period of not less than 12 months. To meet the definition, you have to have a severe impairment, be unable to do your past work or any other work. And that is such a mouthful that you know a government official wrote this, because it's totally ununderstandable. So as we go through the process, you'll see really what all this means. And so the first question, and we do this based on a 5-step sequential evaluation process. And one of the biggest questions I get is working and getting Social Security. And that's answered in step 1 of the process. And understand that this is sequential. So that means if at any stage you're bumped out of the process, we don't go further. So step 1 is the claimant, and you're all the claimants, person trying to get disability is called a claimant. Is the claimant engaging in substantial gainful activity? And substantial gainful activity is physical or mental effort for pay or profit. So it's work, okay? Social Security defines this substantial gainful activity, or SGA as we call it, by a dollar amount. And right now it's $1,350, and it changes every year. So what this means is if you're working and you are grossing $1,350 or more, Social Security doesn't care about your disability. They don't care what's wrong with you. They don't care anything. They won't even look at a diagnosis if you're working and earning $1,350 or more. Now, one of the questions that I get on a regular basis is, I'm not physically going to work, but my boss is still paying me. Does that mean I can't apply? And you absolutely can get benefits if your boss is paying you, but you're not working, because we don't look at your paychecks as much as we look at the actual doing work to make that paycheck. So if you are on long or short-term disability, if your boss is paying you a severance, if just out of the goodness of their heart, your salary is continuing, you still can get disability because you're not doing productive work in order to make that salary. But there's a few other things that we can look at. So if you're continuing to work, but you get special accommodations or a few other things, we can reduce the special items that you're getting dollar for dollar from your earnings. So if you're only able to do 50% of your job, but you're being paid 100% of your job salary, then we reduce your salary by that 50%. So if you're earning $2,000 a month, but you're really only working 50% of your duties, then we can take the earnings down to $1,000 a month, in which case you could qualify for benefits, even though your paycheck says $2,000 a month. And remember, this is always gross, not net. We also look at impairment-related work expenses, and these are expenses that are, because of your disability, allow you to work. Special transportation, special equipment at work, if you need an aide with you, all those expenses that allow you to work are taken dollar for dollar off your earnings. If you pay for medicines out of your own pocket, that comes off of this. Glasses, anything that you need comes dollar for dollar off of this, except for health insurance premiums. We're not allowed to claim health insurance premiums, but we can claim any deductibles or co-pays or anything else that comes out of your pocket. If you're yeah.
Sorry, I already have a question.
Yeah, good.
So the medications, is that specific to being able to work, or is it just medications that you're taking for your disability?
Can you hear my phone? I have it in the other room, but I can still hear it. You guys can't? Okay, good.
Oh yeah, now we can. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm going to try to ignore it. So the medications are a part of the disability. They're not medications that are going to allow you to work, but they're just medications that are part of your disability. Okay. And if the medications are part of your disability, because anything you take that helps your disability, helps your impairment, also helps you to work. So anything you take can come dollar for dollar off of that. Okay. If you're self-employed, we have several special rules that we use. We not only look at your earnings, but remember, for us self-employed people, we can manipulate our taxes to show earnings low or earnings high, however we want to manipulate them. So for self-employment people, we look at the ability, if someone else was doing this job that wasn't impaired and was doing the exact same thing, what that would be worth to the business and what that would be worth in terms of salary. We look at net instead of gross. And there's just a bunch of special rules we look at for self-employment. But so essentially we're looking, first step is the person able to engage in SGA? And if there's no SGA, then we go on and we look at the impairment. Okay, so if you're working, it doesn't matter. If you're working and earning over SGA, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Sorry, there's another question. The $1,350 is per month, correct?
Per month. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And that amount changes every year. So that's a floating amount. I don't do, and do they have the materials that I prepared?
Nope, completely forgot about them. Sorry.
That's okay. This is outlined in a lot more detail in the materials. So when they get them, a lot of this, everything I'm talking about will be in there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So once we get beyond the work activity, then we look to see if you have a medically determinable impairment. That's kind of a gimme for ALS or any motor neuron disease. But in addition to having this impairment, it has to meet a durational requirement of 12 months because Social Security isn't a short-term program, it's a long-term program, or it has to result in death. And if you meet one of those two parts, then we go on from step 2 to step 3. And the next part of the evaluation process is, does the impairment meet or equal a listing? And the listings are 14 categories of impairments that Social Security has that if you fall squarely within the impairment, Social Security will find you disabled. ALS is one of them. And the materials that they will have, that you guys will have, outlines what you need to meet this. In case of ALS, you just need a diagnosis. You don't need anything else. The other motor neuron diseases, including those that are very, very close to ALS, aren't part of that automatic approval, but most of them will be found to equal a listing that's outlined in the materials, and you can also find it on the Social Security website. So most of these cases will be awarded at step 3. So there's no SGA, there's a severe impairment, and there's a meets or equals a listing. But if the impairment isn't bad enough, so it doesn't fall squarely within the listing, then we go on to step 4, and we look at whether you can do your past work. And past work is defined as work that's done in the last 15 years prior to the onset of the disability. And we look at your work and we categorize it by either sedentary, light, medium, or heavy. Sedentary is lifting no more than 10 pounds and sitting 6 hours a day. Light is lifting 20 pounds occasionally, 10 pounds frequently, and on your feet most of the day. And then it goes up from there. So we look at your work in terms of your exertional requirements, and then we look at your work in terms of what was required for activities such as bend, stoop, crouch, crawl, kneel, reach, and that type of thing. We then go on to the cognitive requirements of it, which we look at the skill level in which your job was performed. Was it unskilled work, which needs little or no judgment and is you can learn the job in a few days to a few weeks? Semi-skilled, which generally involves training of less than 3 months, or skilled work, in which you have a longer period of training and oftentimes you need a higher level of education. So we look at your work in terms of those 3 functions, and so we categorize it. Your job is light and skilled, or semi-skilled, or it is sedentary and highly skilled. And that's how we look at your past relevant work. Now we take that past relevant work and we compare it to Oh, I have a typo in there, sorry. We compare it to what you can do despite your impairment. So we call that your RFC, your residual functional capacity. And if you have the abilities now, if your current ability, your current residual functional capacity is the same as your past work, so we categorize them the same, then Social Security is going to say you can do your past work and you're not disabled. Then the final stage is if you can't do your past work, then we look at whether or not you can do other work that exists in the economy. And we look in terms of your age, education, transferable skills, and RFC. So if you are limited to light work and have an education that allows for transferable skills, it becomes harder to get disability benefits. But not impossible. So we look at these age categories, and I love how Social Security categorizes this. You're younger if you're under 50. You're closely approaching advanced age. Are you closely approaching advanced age? At 50 to 54, you're of advanced age at 55 or older. I'm not even in that one anymore. And you're closely approaching retirement age if you're 60 and older. And under the Social Security rules, the older you get, the easier it is to obtain benefits. So this is the one time in your life that it's good to be old, I guess. Then we look at whether your education is less than high school, or high school graduate or more. And then if you have skills that go from your job to others, and the more highly skilled your job is, the less likely they transfer into other work. An airline pilot skills really don't transfer into other work. But someone who works in assembly, any skills that they have would transfer easily into other work. So, that's the 5-step sequential evaluation process in a nutshell. So if we get through all 5 steps and we can't identify any work that you can do, then you're considered disabled from Social Security. The process to getting benefits is you initially file an application. And you can do it online or you can do it by phone. And in my last slide, I'll have up the website and the phone number. You file an application. In an ALS case, it is supposed to work that you will be approved on confirmation of diagnosis within, it was 11 days, then it went to 2 weeks. And that was all before COVID. Now in COVID, applications for ALS people are taking months, not days like they're supposed to. We don't have the ability to really talk to anybody. Most Social Security employees are still working from home. When you can get a hold of someone at an office, they always will call you back and never do. Phone calls are not returned. So more and more what we're doing is we are going to the state senators and we're contacting our state senators and we're asking for assistance in getting these cases paid because they are no longer being paid quickly like they're supposed to. In a other motor neuron case, PLS or any of the others, you file your application. And if it's denied, then the first appeal is called reconsideration. And reconsideration is a paper stage. You're filing more paperwork. I think Social Security's latest statistics is 3% of people are paid at reconsideration. So it's very, very low. And the next stage is a hearing in front of an administrative law judge. And for a non-motor neuron or ALS person, that's where most people get their benefits, not during the first or second stages. The hearing is very informal. It's an hour or less. Right now, we're doing them online via Microsoft Teams. We have not returned to a Social Security office yet. It's not like anything you see on TV. It's very, very informal. It's more like a conversation in which we're telling a judge, a Social Security judge, what your life is like with your impairment. It's very, very informal. And if there's a denial at the hearing, then there are further appeals all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. So there are several different benefit programs that we are applying for. Social Security Disability has a million different names. SSDIB, that stands for Social Security Disability, RSDI, Disability, Title II. It's all the same thing. It's when we talk about disability, this is a program for most people that we're talking about. And when we work and we have FICA taken out of our paycheck that we all know goes to our retirement, what we don't know is that it also goes to buying disability insurance. And so you buy your disability insurance with every check, with every FICA payment coming out. And unlike retirement, where you only need 40 credits paid over your lifetime, in disability, you need 40 credits paid, but half of them have to be in the last 10 years prior to the time you become disabled. So in a year, you can earn 4 credits. There's 4 quarters to a year, and each quarter you can earn a credit. And it's something like $1,300 right now. So for every $1,300 you gross in a year, you can earn 4 credits, up to a maximum of 4 per year. Fully insured means you have 40 credits. Currently insured means that they are from the last 10 years prior to the time that you became disabled. And this sometimes interferes with the, I'm going to be politically incorrect here and say women who have stayed home to raise their children, who have stopped working and stayed home to raise their children, and have stopped paying into the system and then become ill. If they've stopped working too far in the past and then become disabled, they may no longer have disability insurance. And you can't get this through your spouse or from anyone else. You have to actually earn this from your own paycheck. I get a question all the time on, us self-employed people, we can be pretty tricky. We can get our taxes so we're not paying anything. And that's great as far as taxes go in the tax year that we've paid them. But what if we become disabled and we now don't have enough credits for disability? What can we do? Well, Social Security allows us to go back and amend our tax returns for 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days. So essentially, we can go back 4 years and amend our tax returns and claim credits. We have to pay taxes. We have to pay into the system. So it's not a cheap process, but it can get you disability insurance for 4 years. So the maximum you can earn insurance for is 4 years, and you need 5 to qualify. So you have to have worked 5 in the last 10 years to become fully insured. So you can get 4 by amending your taxes, and then there are scrappy ways we can come up with the 5th. So that's what we do. I just did a case for a woman who worked with her husband, and all of the income went into her husband's earnings record. None of it went onto hers. So we went back and we amended the taxes going all the way back, and then got a little creative with that 5th year, and we were able to get her enough insurance. And so she now gets disability. Social Security does not question this when you do it. So the IRS doesn't question this because you're paying into the system. So it really is a win-win system doing this. So the benefits you get from disability are cash and Medicare. So you get a monthly benefit that is really based on how much you've paid into the system. The more you pay in, the higher your benefit, the less you pay in, the lower. And then you get Medicare, and Medicare is the same insurance as old age Medicare, as retirement Medicare. So overall, it's pretty lousy insurance, and you need to purchase a supplement to go along with it. So it's the exact same insurance. And then minor children are entitled to a benefit off of your record. And a minor child is defined as a child under the age of 18 or still in high school, whichever is later. And then a spouse who takes care of a child under 16 gets a share of that. So in a nutshell, and there's a few other little ands, ifs, and buts about that, but in a nutshell, that's where it is. A person in Minnesota, a person who is on disability is also entitled to a step down on their homestead taxes. So we always encourage, as a form, you can get it from my office or your county assessor's office, but there's a form you fill in and you send it with a favorable Social Security decision, and you can get a rebate on your homestead taxes up to, I think it changes all the time. I think you get a step down on your value of your home up to $150,000, or maybe it's up to $200,000 now. So it's definitely worth doing. And so your homestead taxes are then calculated based on the remaining value of your home. It can really provide quite a benefit doing that. So the second program that we run into is called SSI, and this is Supplemental Security Income. And this is for primarily for people who don't have a work history, but it is of limited assets. So it's a needs-based program. The benefit is cash and that should say Medicaid, not Medicare. It's cash and Medicaid. And there's no children's benefits available under this program. The disability program is retroactive to a year up to the time that you apply. What did that just do? The SSI program is only as of the date that you apply, and there's no retroactivity to that. A question I get asked all the time too is survivor benefits. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Survivor benefits are available to a person who is receiving disability, not SSI, to a child under the age of 18, and a widow or a widower under certain circumstances. And the circumstances are, and they're in the materials too, but it's a person age 50 or older who has a disability, or age 60 and higher. And there's certain other survivors that can get benefits. A parent that is fully dependent on the person who passed can get benefits, but that'll be in the materials that you'll have also. So survivors benefits are something that's available. ALS differs from other impairments. There's no 5-month waiting period to get benefits. There's no Medicare waiting period, and the approval is immediately upon confirmation of diagnosis. Now, this really only applies to ALS. It does not apply to other motor neuron diseases, no matter how close they are within the family of diseases. Doctors at times have been very generous in categorizing impairments as ALS versus some other motor neurons, so we can get the favorable treatment. So that's something to keep in mind. But if it's categorized as anything other than ALS, they do not get this fast benefits. There is something called compassionate allowances, though, and that's a program by Social Security that identifies impairments that should result in a favorable determination quickly. And several of the motor neuron diseases are part of the compassionate allowance program. Again, the material outlines which those are. Not all of them are included. But essentially what happens in compassionate allowances, it still goes through the process, but it goes through the process without a magnifying glass. So it's by a brief review of the medical records, it looks as though the listing will be met without a full file workup. They will award benefits as long as there's no work activity. You know, all of this depends on whether or not there's work activity. So as long as there's no work activity with anything within the compassionate allowance family, that'll be paid. It doesn't have the weight it used to. It used to be, if you have a compassionate allowance, as soon as they look and they see there's no work activity, that it'll be paid very quickly. The regulations used to say compassionate allowance cases will be paid, and now it's changed to may be paid. So there's discretion there, and so it doesn't have the bite that it used to have, but it still is there and it's available. So when you apply for benefits, anytime you go on a, sorry, I'm just checking my time here. Anytime you go on a Social Security website, I want you to go to ssa.gov. I don't want you to go to Social Security online or any other method of going on the Social Security website. Go to ssa.gov. I have a fairly unethical profession right now. There are a lot of attorney websites that are one keystroke away from Social Security online. And they have designed the websites to look just like the Social Security website, and you will not necessarily know that you're not on Social Security. It doesn't happen at ssa.gov, so always use that. There's an 800 number, 1-800-772-1213, which as a whole is fairly useless. But what it will do, sorry, I hope no one's watching that, will take offense at that. What it will do is it will can put you in touch with your local office. Now, sometimes with ALS and some cancers, when a person is doing the application online and they identify their impairment, they get a message pops up that says this application cannot be completed online. You need to contact your Social Security office. It will then direct you to the 800 number, which will schedule an appointment with the local office. The problem is that appointments at local offices are usually 3 to 4 weeks out. So it doesn't result in anything happening fast. Pre-COVID, we would tell people to just go to their Social Security office, and that would work. You can't do that anymore. You can't go to a Social Security office. There are some people that are working, but they do not take walk-ins. It's appointment only. If you Google Social Security office locator, you'll get to a website where you just put in your zip code and that'll identify your local office. If you're in the Twin Cities metro area, the best local office is the Bloomington one. And that's where we would always send people, no matter where their local office was, we would send them to Bloomington. You know, it's not so easy anymore. But if you put in the zip code 55426, that gets you, that was my mom's, by the way, so I know that gets you to the Bloomington office, and it'll give you a phone number that you can call. If you can't get the number to any of the local offices, just give my office a call and we'll help you to provide that for you. I don't know any of them, but my paralegal knows all of them, so we can get that to you. If you don't get the message that says contact us on this diagnosis, then it'll allow you to fill in the application. And the application really is going to ask your name, your age, your social, whether you're married or not, if you've ever been divorced, if this is a work comp case. And it doesn't really ask a lot of information about your impairments, but it'll ask the date that you last worked, and you will have to have an exact date. You want, if you're contemplating stopping work, stop at the end of the month, not the beginning of the month, because if you worked till March 2nd, then March doesn't count as a month you're entitled to disability. If you stopped working on February 28th, then March will count. Yeah. Did I see a hand?
Yeah, the question is, why did they make you quit your job and go without income and insurance before you can apply?
That is a question I wish I had an answer for, but I don't. A COBRA, which will, the extension of health insurance, and if you stop working and your employer is paying your health insurance, you can have COBRA for 18 months. For non-ALS people and people with the other motor neuron diseases, there is a 29-month waiting period for Medicare. But if Social Security finds you disabled, COBRA by law has to extend to cover that 29 months. COBRA is not cheap.
Not at all.
Not at all. And there's work underway to remove the 29-month waiting period for all impairments, especially those on a compassionate allowance list. There is movement in Congress to try to eliminate that. But I have to tell you, for half my career, there has been movements underway to try to take care of this. And my career has been long. I'm not a spring chicken. There's a 5-month waiting period before a person's entitled to benefits, not for ALS, but for all other impairments. There's a 5-month waiting period. So not only do you have to stop working, but you have to stop working and be off work for 5 months before you can see any benefit. That doesn't mean you have to wait to apply for 5 months. You can apply the day that you stop working, but you won't see benefit 1 for 5 months. And that's why I talk about stopping work. Be mindful of when you're stopping work, because if you know about when and you stop on February 28th, then March is going to be the first month of your 5-month waiting period. If you stop working on March 2nd, then March doesn't even count as part of that 5-month waiting period. So really important that you are a little mindful about when you stop work in terms of how the benefits are going to go. That's really what I have prepared. I have a couple things that I face all the time that I'm just going to address just generally. These are kind of the questions that I get. So question number 1 is, should I just go in retirement or should I get disability? What should I do? I'm 62 years old. I can go either way. What should I do? The answer to that is you could do both, actually. You can apply for retirement while your application for disability is pending. There's no reason for a person with ALS to do this, but other motor neuron diseases there is. So you can apply for retirement and you can have your retirement income, the 60% or 80%, whatever you get for retirement, will pay you. And then when you get your disability, it'll go back and make up the rest of it. Oh, I just hear my back door opening. See if he's going to try to slink into the house quietly. Hello, goodbye. And so you can apply for retirement, and then you can also apply for disability. So you have a source of income while the disability is pending. Retirement is automatic. There's no question that you're going to get it. We get asked about, I'm trying to read my notes here, and it's terrible. And when you and I talked, you wanted me to address farmers income, and there are no.
Be great, because we do get that a lot where people have been self-employed, farmers, rodeo workers, whatever.
Yeah. There are no special provisions. The biggest question we get on that is, again, the credits, like we talked about, and there are no special provisions here. You still have to have paid into the system. and your benefit amount is going to be worth based on the amount that you've paid in. So there's no special provision that allows less to be paid in for occupations that are generally very low income, or we're self-employment where we are creative with our taxes and we don't show any earnings. So those are situations where you really need to go back and amend your taxes and, you know, bite the bullet and pay it if you can afford it. In the long run, it's economical to do what you have to do to get the money to pay your taxes and amend them and get your disability benefit than it is to just let it go. But there are no special provisions for that. Okay.
I'm going to pause recording here for a minute.
Okay.
And there is a question about, does SSDIB always get the same COLA adjustment as SSI?
So what a COLA, so the question of COLA and SSDIB and SSI, COLA is a cost of living adjustment. Every December, there's a big deal in all the news about the cost of living adjustment for people with Social Security. And so people on disability get a COLA adjustment. People on SSI don't necessarily. The amount that you're paid on SSI varies by state. Unlike a disability, which is based on how much you pay into the system, SSI is a needs-based state program with a federal supplement. And so it varies by state, and it is more tied to the cost of living than it is tied to the cost of living adjustment or the COLA from Social Security. So they're going to be a little different. Generally, we see a higher cost of living adjustment on SSDIB than we do on SSI. Okay.
Next question. If the person with ALS is the sole breadwinner, is there anything for the spouse to apply for if they are not of retirement age?
Okay, so the Social Security does not provide earnings for spouses unless the spouse is caring for a child under the age of 16. So we have primary insurance amounts and we have family benefits. So I do everything in round numbers because I can't do math. But if my disability benefit is $1,000 a month, then those who qualify under my earnings record are going to share a pot of $500 a month. So half again the amount. So my total family benefit will be $1,500, my $1,000, and then the family is going to share a pot of $500. The people that are entitled to share into this pot, however, is very limited. A minor child who's under the age of 18 or still in high school, and a spouse caring for a child under the age of 16 are the only people that can share into this. So just being married does not allow the spouse to claim into a disability benefit. This is only for the disabled person and the disabled person's minor, we call them auxiliaries, but the children. So there is no spouse benefit.
And is it 500 per child?
Nope. So if there's, again, I have to do round numbers. If there are 4 children, they each will, oh, why did I do that? If there's 5 children, they'll each get $100. You know, I became a lawyer, so I didn't have to do math. So they'll each get $100. As one reaches the age of 18, then that one drops off and the other ones each get $125. And then it just will increase until there's only one left. So it's a pot that they share out of. Okay, so the question was asked, can you opt out of Medicare? So you get your Medicare notice and can you decide not to take it? Yes. However, and it is a big however, if you decide to take it in the future, there is a huge penalty. So if you assume your Medicare premiums are going to be, I'm going to say $200 and $300, round numbers again. Okay. And 1 year later, you decide you want to opt in. Your Medicare premiums are now $330. There is a 10% per year penalty for opting in late. 2 years later, it's going to be 20% higher. 3 years later, it's going to be 30% higher. So there is huge penalties for not opting in. Under some circumstances, you also may not be able to get a Medicare supplement. So Medicare supplement companies have to accept anybody on Medicare if they apply within the first 6 months of qualification. After 6 months, they can be screened out. And no insurer is going to take a person with ALS if they don't have to. There are some exceptions to this, but they're very complicated. But the long and the short of it is although you can opt out, really don't, unless you know you're set for life on insurance. If you're under a, my dad was a federal employee, he was a postal carrier, and my mom was set for life on his insurance, and she did not take Medicare, and that wasn't an issue. But at one point she had a medical problem that she would have gotten better benefits under Medicare, and she looked into applying for it. And at that time, her premium was 300% what it would have been otherwise, and she didn't do it. So really opting out of Medicare is available, but it's not something you want to do. There are just really long-term consequences. So the follow-up question to that is, so if it takes 2 months to get approved, do you now only have 4 months to get your supplement? And no, it's 6 months from when you get your notice of entitlement to Medicare. So it's not 6 months from when you could have taken it. It's 6 months from when you get your notice. So if for some reason you delay your application for disability for a year, because you know that it's retroactive, which is something I didn't talk about, but you know it's retroactive and you delay your application for a year, and now you're getting it and you get your Medicare notice. You have 6 months from when you get your Medicare notice to get your supplement in place. You know, the benefits, by the way, are SSI is not retroactive. Disability is retroactive up to 1 year prior to the date that you file the application. So if you do delay for one reason or another, you're still covered for as long as you get your application filed within the year.